My name is Larry Hanauer. I'm a senior international policy analyst at the RAND Corporation. So, if the United States and its partners reach a deal with Iran, Congress will play an important role in enabling the administration to provide some of the sanctions relief that Iran wants. Now, Congress can take a range of options that would either facilitate implementation of a deal, constrain the executive branch's ability to implement a deal, or even block the administration from implementing a deal. Some of the steps Congress might take are lifting statutory sanctions or providing the administration with the funds needed to implement a nuclear agreement. Congress could also take steps to limit what the administration can do to provide sanctions relief, for example, by limiting some of the president's statutory waiver authorities, or even passing new sanctions or reinstating sanctions that the president has waived during the negotiations. Congress could also take steps to block the implementation of an agreement by withholding funds for its implementation, or even by voting to disapprove the agreement, and which would have the effect of nullifying it. Congress could either reinstate sanctions that the executive branch has already waived or pass new sanctions, and the impact would depend on whether the new sanctions were provoked by Iranian noncompliance with an agreement or whether the United States imposed these sanctions unilaterally. If Congress were to impose new sanctions that were not provoked by Iran, it could have some significantly negative consequences. It could drive Iran back to high-level nuclear enrichment because the Iranians might claim that they're no longer seeing any economic benefit from a deal. It could cause the Europeans and other allies to lose support for the sanctions regime. They could take the view that Congress and the United States simply view the sanctions regime as an end in itself instead of as a means to achieve a non-proliferation objective. And ultimately, the United States could remain isolated with a weakened sanctions regime. Now, if Iran were demonstrated to have violated the agreement and sanctions were to have snapped back, meaning that sanctions would be reimposed because of Iran's violation, then it would have a very different impact. The cost, of course, of those sanctions would have been known to Iran in advance. European allies would perhaps see that the new sanctions were put in place because of Iran's violation of the agreement rather than American intransigence. And so the United States is not likely to be seen internationally as having unilaterally blown up the negotiations. So if Congress were to impose new sanctions or reinstate sanctions that had previously been waived, it would be more productive if Congress were to do so through legislation that had these snapback provisions, because that would place the blame for any new sanctions on Iran rather than on the United States.